Sexual misconduct after misconduct after misconduct. What are you guys doing? How are you hiring people? Are you just like going to your local sex offender registry, closing your eyes and like pointing your finger, and whichever one on the screen that ends up, you're like, hey, you're hired. Russian roulette for pedophiles. Welcome to Come and Take It. I am Sara Gonzales, and this week we're going to get a little heated, all right? Because we're going to talk about two things that matter incredibly to me. Two of my passions, which are, of course, protecting children from abuse and fixing the rotted public education system here in the state of Texas. So, do you still have your kid in public school? If so, why? Might I ask you, why? They're not learning anything of value, I would say. They're not being taught critical thinking. They're being taught answers to a test so that the teachers can get all good marks. They're not actually being taught how to solve problems themselves. On top of that,
you and you grab the TV and roll it up front.
We're watching a movie on the first day? I think it's awesome. You rock.
Oh. These cookies suck.
They're being exposed to this cesspool of, bad behavior, sometimes violence, radical ideology for 8 hours a day, which I often try to remind people. They're usually spending more wake time with these characters than they are with you. So just remember that. Kids tend to become who they're around. That's why it's important to have positive examples, positive role models, good peers around them. So if they're in a cesspool for 8 hours a day, it's going to rub off on them. All right. So, but if all of that hasn't convinced you to get your kids the bleep out of public schools, let me read you some headlines from just the last couple of weeks. Okay. Here's the first one. 5th Klein ISD teacher accused of sexual misconduct with students. 5th. Yes, that means there was 1, 2, 3, and 4 more to speak of prior to this in one school district. Here are some of the details. Isidoro Guerrero worked at Klein Forest High School as an agricultural science teacher since 2019. Now, this is the Houston area. Okay. The district released a statement informing staff members and families that Guerrero was fired after he admitted to going on a, quote, non-sanctioned trip outside of school with his students. Here are some of the other ones that happened just in this one school district. In December, Epps Island elementary teacher Matthew Stegman was charged with indecency with a child by contact following accusations that he improperly touched a 7-year-old female student. Here's another one. Also in December, Greenwood Forest Elementary School teacher Kenneth Esprit was charged with 5 counts of possessing child pornography. And let's not forget Klein Oak High School teacher Sebastian Baraldi, who was arrested in February and charged with 5 counts of possessing also child pornography. These sick freaks. Just last month, a cosmetology teacher at Klein Kane High School, Kedria McMath Grigsby, was arrested and charged with 3 counts of trafficking a child and 3 counts of compelling prostitution of children under the age of 18. This is how gross that story was. Grigsby allegedly worked with her son, her 21-year-old son, to exploit troubled students. So she lured them in. She saw that they were vulnerable. She lured them in. And then she trafficked them. She trafficked her students with the help of her adult son.
Just a sick world we're living in. Sick people.
How sick do you have to be? How low, by the way, do your standards and your vetting process have to be to bring in this crowd? But unfortunately, I'm not done. It's not just Klein ISD. Spring ISD teacher charged with improper relationship with a student. Valerie Lauren Mata, 26, was a theater teacher at Dekaney High School. She was arrested after an investigation by Spring ISD police revealed an alleged sexual relationship between her and an 18-year-old student. According to the student, and those of you who are going to say, well, hold on, he was 18. Well, first of all, gross. It's still a crime to have an improper relationship with your student. Second of all, according to the student, during his sophomore year, Mata would greet him with hellos, which later developed into baby or sweetheart. It was also revealed that Mata contacted the student's friends to convince him to join her class. And court records show that the student told investigators that he and Mata allegedly had an inappropriate relationship that involved sexual acts taking place at the school. The two also apparently sent each other nude pictures. Houston, we have a problem. Quite literally, what is going on in Houston? How are all these perverts getting hired? What is the vetting process here? Okay, because all of this happening in this one area, especially with Klein ISD, misconduct after misconduct after misconduct. What are you guys doing? How are you hiring people? Are you just like going to your local offender registry, closing your eyes and like pointing your finger and whichever one on the screen that ends up, you're like, hey, you're hired. Russian roulette for pedophiles. I mean, how broken does your process have to be? And by the way, let's move out of the Houston area. It's not just Houston. Let's move over to the Waco area, all right? This one is really sick as well. Gatesville ISD teacher arrested for sending nude photos to 15-year-old student. Christine Page Cockrell, who worked as an 8th grade earth science teacher at Gatesville Junior High School, was arrested earlier this month after a 15-year-old student told authorities that she had exchanged nude photos and sexual messages with him on the social media platform Instagram. According to the criminal complaint, Cockrell allegedly sent nude photographs of her breasts and asked for nude photographs of the student. The student also said that the two began communicating sexually beginning in January 2023 when the victim was in 8th grade. One of their conversations involved meeting up for sex. However, the complaint states the two did not have sexual contact. Now, this one really took like a very strange turn because she was questioned by school officials. This woman, and by the way, I want to explain for those of you who are listening on audio podcasts. This is like, I was going to say I don't mean to be degrading, but this is not a good person. So don't care if I don't sound nice. This is like a very old lady. She looks like she's in her 50s, and she's sending nudes to 15-year-old boys. And she's talking to them about how many of her past sexual partners and things that she enjoyed sexually. She also told the boy that she wanted to take a younger guy under her wing and teach him stuff. That's in quotes. Teach him stuff. That is a sick old lady. So sometimes you think like, oh, well, I have this older, more maternal woman who's teaching my kid in public school. What could possibly go wrong? I don't know, this. Trust no one with your kids, okay? So she also said, when questioned by school officials, she said she admitted to messaging students on Instagram, but could not recall whether a photograph of her breasts had been sent. Right. I got to tell you, I'm not in the habit of like sending nudes, okay? But I'd imagine one would probably recall whether or not she got out her phone, took a picture of her bare breasts, and sent it to a 15-year-old boy. Call me crazy. But I don't know. I'm not a pervert. So what do I know? Maybe she just had so many young boys that she was just sending off nudes to. She couldn't keep them straight, right? She couldn't remember if this particular one had received a picture of her yet. And I might be right, because the article also says that Cockrell revealed that a former student had messaged her and propositioned her for Right. She's the victim, right? Detectives contacted the student who said she had messaged him saying he was, quote, cute. When the boy told her he was 17, she allegedly replied, "No one has to know." There are not enough millstones in the world for these people. I have 2 sons, and I can promise you, if any adult does this to my kids, I don't care if you're male, I don't care if you're female, none of that matters to me. A predator comes after my sons, and you will never find the body. I just want to make that clear. And I wish that I were done with all of the headlines from just the last week or so, but I'm not. Special needs aide in Alvin ISD accused of inappropriate behavior with a student. Chasson Bailey, an educational aide who worked with special needs students at E.C. Mason Elementary School, was arrested Tuesday following a grand jury indictment and charged with indecency with a child and improper relationship between educator and student. By the way, this one happened April 9th, and the school district didn't inform the parents until last week due to the incident being under active investigation, they said. So, again, I understand. I got it. Like, police have to do their job, and who's the school district to, threaten that? But here's the thing. Really rubs me the wrong way because your taxes are being funneled to these little Marxist indoctrination camps. You are paying for these schools so that your kids can go there, learn nothing of value to the world, be exposed to all sorts of violence in the process, depravity, teachers who try to talk them into using made-up pronouns, confuse them about who they are, train them to be little communists, and allow them to be surrounded by a bunch of sexual predators who are going to prey on them. And then after all that's done, they won't even tell you about it. They won't even let you know that they know that there's a predator on campus that could have exposed your child to this type of depravity, that could have ruined your child's innocence. Your child could have been a victim of this person, and you wouldn't have known about it. You wouldn't have been able to ask your child a question. Hey, what's your experience with Chasson Bailey? Did you ever have any run-ins with him? Tell me about them. If your kids were exposed, you would not have even been able to ask them until way after the fact. I mean, that is some kind of dysfunctional relationship that the public has with these public education camps. That is abuse. I would argue that's an abusive relationship. You're paying for it to send your kids there so that they can be indoctrinated, so that they can be lessened, so that they can have their innocence taken from them, so that they can be, just another prey for these sexual predators. You're paying for it, and then they don't even want to tell you what's happening to the kids in there. That is some kind of dysfunctional. Again, wish I was done. I'm not. Here's another one. Crum ISD band teacher indicted on 11 child sex abuse charges. Carol Turner, 60, faces 9 counts of indecency with a child by sexual contact and 2 counts of sexual assault of a child. The alleged crimes date back to 1996 through 1998. She began working for Crum ISD in 1991. 11 child abuse charges. Again, this woman was 60. So if you think you've got an older woman and she's just going to be like a sweet little grandma to your kids, think again. That's how disgusting the public education system has become. Public schools are a breeding ground for sexual exploitation of children. And you know who has that all figured out? The predators, the pedophiles. It's why they've infiltrated in the public education system. They were the first ones who went, okay, so you're telling me I can apply for this job, be exposed to these little kids for 8 hours a day, and then I can get closer to them and try to do all sorts of disgusting things to them. They figured that out. That's why it's rampant in there. Like, I literally, all I just did was go through stories from public schools within like the last week or two. That's it. That's how prevalent it is here in the state of Texas. Even if it's a charter school, by the way, which is, of course, a form of public schools that I know that we kind of leave out of the conversation a lot. I have my own personal story with a charter school and this type of thing happening. Well, at least them not vetting who's going to be around your kids, who's going to be, teaching your children, leaving an impression on your children for 8 hours a day. Here's my story. So my older son went to a charter school for a very short amount of time, but it was during COVID and everything was crazy. And whenever they shut down and they reopened the following year, they had the little drive-by meet the teacher because we couldn't speak to one another. We couldn't be in the same place. We had to all be 6 feet apart and you have to suffocate your face with a mask and all sorts of crazy things that, by the way, I never sent him back on campus because I was not going to have my kid wear a mask over my dead body. So, but he was going to be the remote teacher. And so we drove by and it was this new teacher. He was new to teaching, which was kind of strange to me. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't inherently trust males who go into the education system when you're talking about younger kids. I know there are some good ones out there. I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm just saying just me as a mom, like my guard is already up. So we had this conversation with this guy and my guard was way up because he was just weird. He just was, there was something not right about him. And so we went home and my mom alarm bells are going off and I'm like, I'm doing some digging into this guy. So I did. And I found his Facebook page. And on his Facebook page, he had very stupidly had all of his likes. You know how you can like a Facebook page? He had all of his likes set to public. So the public could see, I wasn't friends with this guy. The public could see all of his Facebook likes. Well, he had liked a bunch of like anime pages and they were all daddy princess anime porn interests. I mean, it was sick what I saw. I was horrified. And I was like, this is the person that you picked to teach my son? How could you possibly make this mistake? Why am I the one who's logging onto Facebook and finding this? What the hell were you guys doing? You didn't think to check his social media pages? You didn't think to scour through what you could before you put him in front of children for 8 hours a day? Like, what is wrong with you? And so I had to email the school and say, hey, here's what I found. Here are all the screenshots. And of course he got fired after that. But it's like, what are you guys doing? Trust no one. Heavily vet all of them. I don't care if it's the janitor. None of them should have access to my kids without you going through a heavy vetting process and weeding these weirdos out. Clearly, they want access to kids. Don't make it easy for them, please. So I don't know how many more times I can say this. Get your kids out of these places. Come hell or high water. It's not worth the risk. And in the meantime, monitor your kids. Okay. A lot of these situations escalated through social media. And look, all I can tell you is my own personal opinion and how I live my life and how I am raising my children. First of all, they're never setting foot in a public school, charter or regular public, ever again. But I'm not here to be my kid's best friend. Okay. So you live under my roof. I don't have to ask for permission to monitor what you're doing. In my home, out of my home, on a device that I pay for, which my kids don't have devices, but I realize I'm in the minority on that. I have the right to monitor everything you do because I'm your parent, and that's what a parent does. Observe your kids' teachers. Observe the communication that's happening between your kid and your kids' teachers. Ask the questions. Do the digging. I know they want to come home and you want to ask them, how was school? And they say, fine. And that's it. Do the digging. Please, if you're going to put your kids in these indoctrination camps where there are predators waiting for them, please, for the love of God, do the digging. And push for school choice, because we all know, look, I'm not here to tell you private schools don't have their own problems or that there's never been a predator in private schools. But what I am here to tell you is that the private school system does not see this happening at the rate that they do in public schools, because private schools have to be extra cognizant of who is there. Why? Because they have to actually abide by, free market systems. If they have crap teachers who are getting arrested and who are getting fired and who are having all these improper relationships with their kids and who are indoctrinating their kids, like, people aren't going to go to their school anymore and they're not going to get the money. Public schools don't have to abide by that. Public schools are of the opinion, well, doesn't matter. You have to send your kid here. We get the money regardless. Who cares? Private schools have to actually work for it. So are some slipping in? I'm sure. But private schools know to be extra careful, okay? So this could potentially change if we had school choice, which means I'm going to end with hold our legislators accountable. School choice gets thrown into the mix, and all of a sudden, all these public schools have some competition. And they're going to be forced to figure out, do we want to hire crap teachers and have these kids leave and then we get no money? Or do we want to actually vet these teachers? Do we want to actually go to their social media pages and scour through and make sure they aren't a total pervert before we put them around your kids? Odds are they're going to take a little bit more time to do that once the funding is threatened to be taken away from them. So hold your legislators accountable for school choice. And that's the end. That's the moral of the story this week. Join me in doing that. Join me in the fight. And of course, I hope that you will join me next time here on Come and Take It.